Yesterday was the deadline for fifth-year options for the 2021 draft class, and there were limited surprises. In case you were wondering, the first overall pick that is cut off from the top right here, Trevor Lawrence, he did have his option exercised. No surprise here from the team. The one that kind of got me just staring right off the ball, Kyle Pitts. I thought there was a tiny chance that a new administration, Terry Fontenot's still there, but Raheem Morris, maybe they wouldn't do it. But Fontenot being there, there's enough of a reason to keep him. Plus, there's still talent there. Whatever was going on with Arthur Smith, he's gone now. Hopefully, he can start to get the ball under Kirk Cousins and then eventually Michael Penix. Other than that, no surprises here. J.C. Horn and Patrick Surtain have become two of the elite corners, especially Surtain. He might be the best right now. Devontae Smith, obviously for the Eagles, signs an extension. I know some people were thinking Fields would get his option picked up. That makes no sense from the Steelers' perspective. Why give him those guarantees when he could get hurt, or when Russell Wilson might pan out, or if Russell doesn't pan out, Fields does get on the field this year, and then Fields doesn't pan out as well. However, I would expect Fields to receive some sort of extension similar to what Jordan Love received last year with the Packers. They didn't want to exercise his fifth-year option, but they did want to make sure that he was not scheduled to hit free agency. Just give the player a little bit of a sweetener, a little bit of security moving forward, and while ensuring that he's going to stay on your roster the next year. Micah Parsons, they got to get a deal done. Yes. Sean Slater, yes. Elijah Vera Tucker, if healthy, one of the best guards in the league. Also has some tackle flexibility. Of course, gonna go yes. Alex Leatherwood made it one season with the Raiders. Still crazy to think he actually ended up going to Chicago, and I don't know where he's been since. Jalen Phillips, very talented. Of course, you want to keep him around for another year. Commanders, Jamin Davis, not a superstar by any means, hasn't had 100 tackles in a season, but a guy who has been a solid contributor each of his 3 years in the league. Super fast guy out of Duke, I believe. But new administration, Adam Peters is there, Dan Quinn is there. It's not Ron Rivera anymore. He's going to fall out of favor pretty quickly. You do have Bobby Wagner, who comes in via free agency. You have the undrafted guy, Bo Bauer, shout out 814 area. He's going to fall out of favor. I wouldn't be surprised if Jamin Davis actually ends up being a healthy scratch or maybe not even making the roster once the preseason rolls around. Kadarius Toney, if you would have said around the Super Bowl that he would be coming back to Kansas City, everyone would have not believed you. However, that's looking like a real scenario right now, partially due to the Rashee Rice situation, but it looks like it's going to be him, Xavier Worthy, and Hollywood Brown at least to start out the year. Kwity Paye, a guy who, same thing with Jamin Davis, solid contributor, broke out a little bit last season, but I'm super excited. They got their guy opposite of him finally now in Laiatu Latu. Hopefully those two can become their Robert Mathis, Joy Freeney moving forward. Caleb Farley, a guy who I was super high on coming out of the draft, but he fell. He was a top 10 talent, but some severe injury concerns, and those injury concerns have been completely validated in the NFL. He has not been able to see the field. Tough shake for the kid out of Virginia Tech. And I'm just looking. Rashad Bateman, not lived up to expectations, but he's only 24 and he's not going to turn 25 until November. They signed him to an extension. Hopefully he can kind of thrive in that wide receiver 3 role and get on the field. Looking at the Saints' Peyton Turner, that was a stupid pick then, and it is a stupid pick 3 years later. But Najee Harris, that's the guy who has been generating a lot of buzz just because 3 1,000-yard seasons, they don't pick up his fifth-year option, and guess what? He's a running back. We always talk about how fungible running backs are. They don't matter. They're going to get hurt. They can get replaced. Najee Harris has not missed a game yet in his NFL career. 3 seasons which the Steelers really rode him. No diddy. But Jalen Warren's there. And Mina Kimes yesterday on ESPN said that Jalen Warren is not only the best running back that the Steelers have, he's one of the best running backs in the NFL. And while I am a Jalen Warren fan, I would not go that far. But if you look at like the next gen stats of just explosive runs and explosive plays, he does fit that bill. The kid makes something out of nothing all the time. The Steelers now have a decision with Najee Harris. His 5 year option was only like 6.9 something million, so not too shabby, especially for a guy who has had a 1,000 yard season in each of his 3 years. The only player to do so the last 3 seasons. Do you just run the legs off of him and just kind of say, all right, we got as much wear and tear out of you as possible. We're going to let you hit free agency now. That's kind of what the Cowboys did with DeMarco Murray in 2014 before he signed with the Eagles. They went into next season with Darren McFadden. McFadden had a 1,000 yard season. However, the Cowboys sucked. Next year in 2016, they draft Zeke Elliott. I don't think that's what the Steelers are going to do here. Najee's still going to probably get around 200 carries, 230 touches, but Jalen Warren's going to get the ball more. I don't see the Steelers just running the legs off of Najee Harris. He's a guy who, he has some personality to him. He's going to say what he thinks in to the media. He doesn't always get along with the media. Going to be interesting to see what all happens in the next few weeks, whether he talks at OTAs, whether he doesn't talk till training camp, whether he does a hold-in at training camp. The Steelers are not going to offer him a contract, though. It was reported that the top 10 running backs in terms of contract, right now the number 10 spot is occupied by both former Steelers running back James Conner and Aaron Jones at around $7 million per year. The Steelers had a chance to exercise that option for less than that. They don't view Najee Harris as a top 10 running back. Hard to see him in the Steel City past this season. I don't expect a trade either, because what are you really going to get for him? I mean, there's 1 year left on his contract, a lot of wear and tear on his body from Alabama and out to the Steelers. I have a hard time thinking anybody's going to really give up anything for this guy unless a contender goes down with a severe running back injury and they just love Najee Harris. Seems like Najee might just have to suck it up and go through this last year under contract with the Steelers and hit unrestricted free agency in March. All right, and then to end out the first round of the draft, I already mentioned Peyton Turner out of Houston. Stupid pick then, stupid pick now. Eric Stokes, a guy who's missed 22 games after the last 2 seasons combined. Some talent there, really fast, and that's the one position where I need speed. Makes sense though. Wouldn't be surprised if he can come back, have a good year. Maybe he signs an extension. Gregory Rousseau, really talented player, guy who probably dropped to Buffalo in the draft. Want to keep him around. They actually might have signed him to a long-term deal. I thought they did, maybe not. Odafe Owe, a little bit of a surprise here. Ravens fans have kind of grown sick of him. Guy who was a first-round talent, but had 0 sacks at Penn State. His sack production has gone slightly better. He's gotten 5 sacks both last season and his rookie year. His rookie year was actually pretty darn good. However, injuries kept this guy off the field. David Ojabo, another one of those guys, talented in the Big Ten, second-round pick, slid to them due to his Achilles. He's has an exemption spot. I wouldn't have picked this up, but interesting. Baltimore still sees something in him. 5 sacks in 13 games last year. Joe Tryon, I like this guy. He hasn't been more than a rotational player. He came into the league behind Jason Pierre-Paul, behind Shaq Barrett, and just never broke out as a starter. But a guy who has contributed each of his 3 years. He hasn't been a complete bum. Wouldn't be surprised to see him have a breakout season, sort of like Trey Hendrickson saw in his final year with the Saints. He was a solid contributor for years 1 through 3. Year 4, he breaks out. The team doesn't keep him, but he signs a long-term deal with Cincinnati and just continues to flourish there. Could see a similar trajectory come in here for Joe Tryon.